Hello, everyone. I'm Adam Gopnik, and I'm speaking to you from the dining room of my apartment in Manhattan. We'll be going to the Union Square Green Market very shortly because we're going to spend the next hour plus a little bit celebrating two things. A new record, as I still think of them, a new stream download of the musical Our Table that David Shire and I wrote together over the past 10 years and are just bringing out as an album right now. And we're also going to be celebrating the source, the reservoir, the engine of energy that powered the show. And that is the New York City Green Market in Union Square particularly, though there are others spread out throughout the city. And GrowNYC, the parent company of the parent organization, nonprofit, of the Green Market, which, as you'll discover today, has a larger mandate, is playing a crucial role in New York in pandemic time, and celebrating its 50th anniversary, is having a major fundraiser that we'd love you to participate in. As you can see, I'm sitting right in front of a lot of music, and all of that music was written in this very room, and much of it at this very piano, by the remarkable David Shire, who's been part of the New York City musical theater scene, contributing particularly with his partner, Richard Maltby, to the life of the American musical theater through that time. David approached me about working on a musical together, and it's been one of the great passions of my life as well. And after some talk, we decided that the thing that moved us both and that excited us both was the idea of a musical about food in New York. David was particularly turned on by a couple of books of mine, The Table Comes First, and Through the Children's Gate, which is a story about making a family life in New York. The Table Comes First, a book of philosophy about chefs and food. We found a story implicit in Through the Children's Gate. We found a theme, quite explicit, in The Table Comes First, the idea that the table is the great raft of human existence that we go down together through life. And we found a setting when we went down to visit the New York City Green Market at Union Square and imagined a fight for the very existence of New York, because Our Table is about many things, but above all, it's about New York. It's about the New York that we love, of small individual initiative and enterprise, exemplified by restaurants, and the New York that we're losing now in pandemic time more than ever. More on that in a moment. The musical director of Our Table is the wonderful Dennis Cordell, and Dennis has, to give us an hors d'oeuvre, a taster, and amuse-bouche, prepared an overture from David's music. Dennis?
Thank you, Adam. On May 10th, 2017, I had to think about the date for a second because no one has any sense of how time operates now, Richard Maltby and I were on a train from Manhattan up to New Haven. It was a simpler time. The reason for our trip was to see the opening night performance of a show then called The Most Beautiful Room in New York, now known as Our Table, which was receiving its world premiere at the Long Wharf Theater. Since it's a fairly lengthy trip up to New Haven, about 2 hours and change, I had some time on my hands and thought I would use it to prepare an opening night present for my friend David Shire. This is what emerged from it. A sort of collage overture of whatever melodies from the show I could remember from the two workshops I had seen in the years previous, and relying only on my relative sense of relative pitch and my memory of those songs, I hand wrote out a sort of melange of melodies from the show. I called it, rather somewhat cleverly, I thought, table d'hôte. I have managed to exhume it with the help of David and made a few corrections where I was not entirely accurate to the melodies, but what you're now about to hear is essentially what I gave to David on opening night of The Most Beautiful Room in New York, now Our Table. Here to provide additional support and all of the good parts of the performance is Annie Pasqua, and we're very proud right now to present to you our two-piano rendition of table d'hôte.
Hey, Dennis, thank you. Dennis and Annie, thank you so much for getting us off with that wonderful melange of David Shire melodies. One of the greatest joys of this project has been sitting, as I say, usually in this room, and suddenly witnessing this efflorescence, this effortless efflorescence of melody from the fingers of David Shire. That's a beautiful tribute to his music, and for all of you who are watching, it anticipates in a fragmentary form a lot of music that you'll hear over this lunch hour. But as I said, though, David and I wanted very much to write a musical about food. We also wanted to write it about New York, about the stresses, the tribulations, and the difficulties of New York. And there was no place where those two things came together, the pleasure of New York and the pain of making the best of New York persist, than in the New York City green markets. And we set the entire show in the green market at Union Square, imagining a small family restaurant run by a couple, David and Claire Kaplan, with their two children living upstairs, very much inspired by restaurant couples who I knew. And we just moved the restaurant right beside Union Square so that the family would be immediately, within seconds, connected to the Union Square Green Market. And I'm overjoyed now to be able to go right to Union Square and the Green Market and talk to Nick Rolfe of GrowNYC. Nick, are you there?
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I am well. How are you? But wow, look at the background there. What's the day like today down there? Hot?
It is a sweltering hot day at the Green Market, but we've got a lot of producers out here selling their wares, and people are braving the heat today. So it's a good day.
It's very funny actually, Nick, because we recorded our table at 54 Below, the Feinstein's 54 Below, the wonderful nightclub, on what was unquestionably the coldest day of the year. And I am Canadian, so I can speak about cold days. Coldest day I've ever known. And now we're celebrating it on one of the hottest days in New York that I can recall. And Nick, GrowNYC is celebrating its 50th anniversary. That's correct, right?
Yeah, founded in 1970 by Mayor John Lindsay and a group of concerned citizens in the spirit of the first Earth Day. And so this year we're celebrating our 50th anniversary year. Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating, Nick. In other words, it was impelled by growing ecological consciousness into existence rather than by the farmers bringing the things in. The ecological consciousness preceded the green markets themselves.
Exactly, yes. Actually, our green market program started in 1976. Our first green market was located under the 59th Street Bridge. And then shortly thereafter, here Union Square was opened in that summer. Mm-hmm.
Well, the story we tell in our table, the musical, is about a threat to the green market. That's the whole propulsion of the story. In a rather Frank Capra-like way, the antagonist is going to commercialize and take over the green market. Is there any actual risk of that happening? What's the long-term stability of the green market in Union Square?
We have a wonderful partnership with New York City Department of Parks and the city broadly. And the city has been a very stalwart supporter of the green market. And if it weren't for the city to allow us to operate in park spaces like Union Square, that might be more of a risk. But we feel strongly and we feel like there isn't a huge risk that we're going anywhere. And I think New Yorkers would be pretty upset if that actually happened.
It would be catastrophic and tragic. In fact, one of the things that maybe people don't know is that the green markets have been open right through the pandemic.
That's right. That's right. We were able to keep the vast majority of our sites open. We implemented a lot of very stringent safety protocols, socially distancing, requiring masks. We made sure that people didn't touch the produce, which I think upset some people, because that's obviously one of the wonderful things about coming to the green market. But we implemented this whole series of safety protocols, and that I think has allowed people to keep coming to the green market and feeling safe. here.
It's funny, Nick, what you should have simply done is declared Paris rules, because of course at a Paris green market, you're never allowed to touch the produce. In the pandemic or no pandemic, if you reach out to grab an apple, an elderly French lady slaps your hand away and says, "Ah, monsieur, s'il vous plaît," and then they deal with it themselves. Nick, the green market staying open and GrowNYC supporting it, I know wasn't just a question of keeping beautiful fresh produce. For the farmers involved, it was something close to a question of life or death, existence or non-existence. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we did hear from a lot of our producers. We work with about 240 farmers that are at our markets throughout the year. And because so many of them are connected to the restaurant industry, and their clients were, shut down, and they had a lot of produce in the fields that they were worried about being able to sell. And so the green markets were a real lifeline for a lot of our producers. Yeah.
Terrific. Nick, one thing that many people, myself included, until we began working together, might not be aware of is how broad the mandate of GrowNYC is. We know the green market as this wonderful demonstration, this wonderful island of beauty and flavor in the middle of Manhattan. But what GrowNYC is doing goes a lot farther than that, isn't it? Doesn't it?
That's right. We have a lot of different programs that focus on food access, greening, open space greening in communities like that don't have a lot of park space available, and then zero waste programming. So, we've got a lot of programs. Like, for instance, we operate smaller farm stands in parts of the city that may not be able to support a big full-on green market, but they need access to locally produced healthy vegetables. And we also have a fresh food box program that does a similar thing, although that's more of a CSA model, and people can buy into a share each week that's below market cost. You get about $30 worth of produce for essentially what's about $14. And all of these programs accept SNAP and EBT. So we want to make sure that the people who really truly need the healthy produce are able to afford it.
Right.
And then,
no, go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and then our greening program, since the 70s, we've built about 125 community gardens across the city. We've got a school gardens program as well that is in over 800 schools. So that's almost half of New York City's schools. And then our zero waste programs that are most well known for composting at our green market, and teaching recycling and things like that in our New York City public schools is another important program for GrowNYC.
Yes, and I think everything you're saying, Nick, is something that's thematic to our table, the musical David Shire and I have written, because it's about the interpenetration, the inevitable interpenetration of caring about food and caring about the world, of social activism and food giving and food sharing. You can't run a decent restaurant without caring passionately about where your food comes from and struggling to put a face on it, so it isn't just anonymous production by industrial agriculture. One of the things that's rich in our table, I think, is a kind of subplot that we created, actually, that features the last anarchist pizza parlor in Brooklyn. We had to continually move the pizza parlor deeper into Brooklyn over the 10 years that the show was going on, as Brooklyn became more and more gentrified and homogenized. But what's thematic in it is exactly the idea that at every moment in New York, we feel that we're losing something that's essential to the soul of New York and seeing it be replaced exactly by homogenized or standardized experience. And one of the things that we love about the green market is that it's the antithesis of homogenized experience. Every farmer is bringing her goods, her pleasures, her struggle in life to market. In our table, we extended that idea into the story of Carlo and his daughter Anna and the last anarchist pizza parlor in Brooklyn. And Carlo, our wonderful kind of Shakespearean clown, our comic lead, beautifully incarnated by the wonderful character actor Mark Nelson, is indignant not so much about the crumbling away of the green market, which is a little outside his experience, but about the crisis in caffeine. And now here to sing a song from our table, just out on Broadway Records, is, as in the role of Carlo, the anarchist pizza maker, the wonderful Mark Nelson.
You know what's next door? Driving out candy stores and betting parlors and honest bordellos. Espresso joints. We were serving espresso before it was espresso. I kept my place honest from the mob. Wouldn't pay them protection money. But I'm helpless in the face of a quarter-inch of caffeine and steamed milk. Look what they've done to espresso, the radical beverage sublime. It brightened the press, oh, it lightened the stress, oh, it heightened a working man's time. As black as the flag of the anarchists, each sip would inspire a crime. Now what kind of folks drink espresso today? Only yuppie slime. That's who drinks espresso.
Good thing I prefer a latte.
Latte? Now that gets me steamed. Starbucks has stolen the latte. It's nailed to a styrofoam cross. When served with biscotti, it helped you get plotty and plan how to murder the boss. As white as the snows of utopia, it cheered you as you timed a fuse. The bourgeoisie drink all the lattes today, and the proles, we lose. Under Pisa's sunny skies, there they built bombs. Red Kropotkin seethed as they remembered cruel pogroms. And as they drank cup after cup of that strong brew, all good men must lean to keep their energy keen on that radical beam called caffeine. Black caffeine, white caffeine, iced caffeine, more caffeine, more caffeine. Oh, they've taken the sex from espresso. It once was free love in a glass. It got her to yes, so it helped off her dress. Oh, it shaped your awareness of class. But who can afford a $6 drink? It's now more expensive than crack. The great day is coming, and soon it will be a day of rejoicing when all men will see, when we sip espresso and cheer that espresso is finally free. Occupy Starbucks today!
Thank you, Mark. Oh, that's wonderful. And one of the great pleasures, it's kind of an enforced pleasure, we wouldn't have known it was a pleasure before it happened, of streaming and remote concert going, is that we get to see other people's homes. So we got to look directly into Mark Nelson's kitchen, which I thought was a treat. And as I say, the character Carlo is as indignant about the removal of genuine espresso and its replacement by ersatz Starbucks espresso as our hero, David Kaplan, is by the threat to the green market on the part of his ancient partner, now rival celebrity chef Sergio, who is also the former lover of his wife. That's very much the material of our show. But above all, our show is about the passion of the restaurateur, and particularly the passion of the restaurateur who believes in the green market, who wants what he serves his customers to be not just impeccable, but to have character, authority, terroir, a local feeling. And there's no one I know in the New York restaurant world who embodies those values more than one of the people who inspired David Shire and myself when we were writing our table, and that is Peter Hoffman. Peter, are you there?
I am.
Hey,
Thank
Peter.
you so much.
Hey, Pete, great to see you. How many
Nice
times
to see you, Adam.
to the green market together would you imagine over the last 20 years?
It's a number that's not countable.
Yes, it's
You
true.
know, we just It's just part. It's part of our life rhythm together. Is that we gather here and make the stroll through and talk about life and buy great produce and meet people and talk and all of life occurs here on our walk together through the green market.
It's absolutely true. And I have a simple system, which I recommend to other people. What I do is I just follow Peter around from stand to stand. And as Peter makes his choices, I say, I'll take the same, very knowingly, as though I've made my decision independent of yours.
Right.
Peter, I should explain.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just going to say, Peter, for 25 years, Peter ran with his wonderful wife, Susan, one of New York's legendary restaurants, Savoy, over on Crosby Street. It was a place that was the one of the living hearts and beating hearts. How's that? Living hearts and beating hearts of Soho in its authentic period. And Peter made a special practice of not just using the green market to, so to speak, fill in the gaps on the menu in his restaurant, but to make it the real core of what he did. When did you first come to the green market, Peter? And when did you get converted to the idea of market to table dining?
Well, let's see. I mean, I started coming to the green market when I was working at Hubert's, where Susan and I met, a restaurant that was on 22nd Street, just off of Park Avenue. And that was in the early 80s, probably 81 is when we realized that there was a treasure here to be accessed and became part of our cuisine. You know, at the time, farm to table didn't exist in that kind of way that it does now or has for the last 20 years. But at the moment, what was happening was that people, chefs, restaurateurs were shifting away from French-based cooking and ideas and starting to think about what was here in the United States. And so it was called New American Cuisine. And so we were all, many of us were very active in mining both what was grown and produced in our country and being proud of it and standing up for it and highlighting it on the menus, but also looking at what are our culinary traditions and the heritage that's here and trying to cook that rather than chasing French or Italian cuisine. So that's where it began. I mean, it just took off, you know, in later years. And then when we had Savoy, that really became very much the core of what we were cooking and presenting. And the idea that we were putting in front of people was, we're cooking from the season, we're cooking in the moment in that improvisational way, and working with ingredients that are sold to us by people we know who are making decisions about taste and quality, not just about profit and speed.
Yes, you said something to me, Peter, that I found very moving, and I always remember. We were talking about why the local and sustainable, the green market, was so important to you as a chef, as a culinary artist. And you said we can make all the arguments for sustainability, and they're crucial. We make all the arguments for the health of the planet, and they couldn't be more important. But I personally love to put a face on my food.
Very true. Still very true. And, you know, when you and I take our walks through the market, we're talking with farmers and we're learning about whether it's their struggle or just what it means to grow the vegetables or the fruits that we're buying. And it deepens our appreciation and understanding of the food that we're cooking with. And I'm writing a book, actually, just finishing it up.
I was about to ask you.
You know, the working title, because it sort of plays into how you relate to me and use me in the market. The working title is "What's Good." So it's both like what's, as a greeting, hey, what's good, but what's good in the market that people look to me and say, what is the right thing to be buying, and know that I have a reason, that there's something behind my selection, not just, as you said, because it's anonymously high sugar or blemish free, but rather that there's a story, there's depth about what makes this the best thing to be eating today. And so the book is both a memoir of what it was like to come up as a chef and run a restaurant, and intercut with chapters about ingredients that tell their backstory, botanical, historical, about what makes it good.
That's what I hadn't heard that title yet, Peter. What's good? Because it's both values and taste, and everything.
That's right.
That our show is about, as you know very well, is about the intersection of values and taste and how they work together.
Right.
Just quickly, Peter, if you would, because it's very much part of this occasion. When we were writing the show, it was about the crisis of one restaurant to survive in New York. But now, post-pandemic, we have a complete semi-apocalyptic crisis of restaurants surviving in New York. What's the future hold?
Well, you and I were talking about it just the other day. I'm very concerned about what it's all going to look like going forward. I think there were a lot of problems that existed already in the equation for restaurants in New York City. It wasn't working. Which is not to say to blame it on any one. It's not about just landlords are charging too much rent or the cost of labor is too high. There are all these factors that the equation itself, which on one side is what are the costs, on the other side is what are people willing to pay. And we experienced that all along, since like people didn't necessarily understand the difference between the pork loin that I put on a plate and what they were getting at the restaurant down the street, that they were buying something that the costs were completely externalized, that resulted in environmental damage or whatever. It's just like that. It wasn't the same pork. It looks like a pork chop, but it's not the same. And so the same thing is going on in other areas that people aren't necessarily comfortable paying, looking to pay to dine out. And it's always a race to the bottom to have the cheapest menu item. And that doesn't work because labor then gets squeezed and you're trying to exploit people who are working hard, or you're buying cheap ingredients that are, again, poisoning people who are producing it or poisoning the planet as we roll along. So there's a real crisis. And so now that there are all these other pressures, it's going to be more and more difficult for restaurants to move forward. So people talk about what's the percentage of fallout going to be. I'm not going to weigh in on that, but the fallout will be significant and large because we can't support it. It already was in crisis, and now we have this massive lid on the whole thing because whether people have less money or there's less tables to be had in the restaurant, less seating available, all these are pressing down on the equation that what it takes to run a business. So we're in trouble.
Right. It's always that way, right? It's like the dinosaurs were killed off by the comet, but they had been weakened by thousands of years of mega volcanoes. So it's the weakened part that dies. What's, for me, heartbreaking about that, apart from our view of it as a crisis for New York and as a financial crisis, is the way that it, for me, and I know for you, Peter, lessens the romance of New York, because restaurants like yours and some others didn't just represent places where you exchanged money for food. They were places that represented a kind of romantic dream that I know you had long held. Someone like our good friend David Waltuck, ex of Chanterelle, had held. And David Shire and I, inspired by you guys, wanted to write a song about the childhood dream of a restaurant that you struggle to embody in grown-up life. And I'd love to share it with you now. Is Melissa Errico there?
Here. I'm here. Hi.
Hey, Melissa, welcome.
Hi there.
With your glasses and your grow background. I don't know if I ever told you this, Melissa, about the song you're going to sing. It was actually inspired by a very specific piece of writing by David Waltuck, of one of the chefs, along with Peter Hoffman, who inspired me. He wrote about the first restaurant he'd ever visited as a kid with his parents. As we passed through the restaurant doors, through the looking glass, it seemed, into a world of lace curtains, tuxedoed waiters, and hushed voices, I was wonderstruck. The restaurant and the ones that followed on subsequent Saturdays awakened in me a kind of romance. The reassuring grace of the maitre d', the timeless elegance of the dining room, the soft, flattering lighting, these things were transporting. And when I read those words out to David Shire, David said, that's a song. That's the crucial I want of our hero and heroine. And you actually participated in the Dream of Savoy, though I didn't know it until we were working together.
This is the thing. I mean, first of all, I'm so glad to be here to celebrate your album, and the beautiful Anastasia Barzi and I were talking this morning because she did the production, also played this part, but developing this.
Our wonderful New Haven production directed by
exactly in New Haven, and she sends her regards to me and to you. Yeah, because you know, we divas, we always bond, and she did a beautiful job in the production.
Soprano Island is where you all live, right?
What's that?
Soprano Island.
That's right. Soprano Island, as Laura Benanti says. So, but here's the thing about Peter, and I hate that he left the screen, because when I did the first workshop with you, obviously I've been helping you develop this piece for about 5 years, and it's been such an honor to be a part of it. When you told me that Peter Hoffman was in the audience at our first month-long workshop, I was so overwhelmed, because for me, the great restaurant experience of my entire life was Savoy. I lived at 285 Lafayette Street for 18 years, and it was a great source of pride that I lived on the corner of Savoy. That was what I liked the most about my apartment. And when it changed, I felt I lost the value of my home, because there was nothing like going there, whether it was upstairs or downstairs, and that awful mess that it is now, no offense, but there was nothing like Savoy. It's the perfect restaurant experience. So
yes, it was not too expensive. It was always perfect. You always felt welcome. And those restaurants, those small restaurants in New York, have always been the hearts of New York life. With all the difficulties of New York life, we escape at the end of the day, right, into the little friendly family restaurant nearby, and we feel ourselves transported. And
but the idea that you had based your show on that restaurant, I felt
all
like
restaurants in New York. Exactly.
Yeah, you know how they say musicals choose you or something. There's always something magical about a role you get to play. And the idea that I got to play this part or help you develop your personal first musical and personal story, and that you knew this, I felt like I knew it too. Right. So I felt really touched. And so I made a video for you last night of this song, but it's really dedicated to Peter, because I understand his accomplishment, and that you put it in something of his heart into a musical. It's just so beautiful. I'm so flattered to be a part of it. And
that's terrific.
The other thing I wanted to say is, because you have so many great friends, that before we cut to it, you also had Brigitte Lacombe take the album cover photo
and all the inside photos in the liner notes. Yes.
Brigitte Lacombe is one of the great photographers in history, and I can't believe that you know her. And so last night I was trying to do Peter's beautiful heart song and your beautiful David Shire song, and I tried to do it in Brigitte Lacombe's aesthetic. So in a pandemic, so
you even have on Brigitte Lacombe's glasses, Melissa. So that yes. couldn't be more appropriate. Just to add the song, and we're so grateful to you, Melissa, for having made this video for us, this tape for us. I should add, it was originally written for David, for our hero, and it's done beautifully by Andy Taylor on the album, who was your barber back in a legendary production of One Touch of Venus, when you played Venus, I know. Andy sings it beautifully, but we had the idea of gender reversing it. Melissa and I had worked on a documentary for PBS, Poetry in America, about the great Stephen Sondheim and his masterpiece, Finishing the Hat, and had the idea of reversing the genders there, so we would find out what a woman feels like trying to finish a pointillist painting. And in this way, too, we moved the song from the character of David, who Andy played, to the character of Claire, who you inhabit, and tried to see what that experience of having been struck dumb by a restaurant was like. From a feminine point of view.
Yeah, I read that beautiful piece about the owner of Prune, another downtown restaurant, and her story broke my heart and moved me so much recently. So I used a little bit of her heartbreak in this too. So anyway, so I made this last night, but I'll come back at the end of the show and I'll try to sing live from my house.
All right, fantastic.
Bye. In the restaurant round the corner, it was always warm and bright. My parents always shone there, they seemed made of candlelight. And waiters bowed and busboys swirled, and nerves tied tight got all uncurled. The cafe round the corner was the best place in the world. You couldn't make it bigger, it fit Sylvie like a dress. You couldn't make it larger without making it much less. And people lost their troubles there, in butter and in bubbles there. That restaurant round the corner was the best place they could share. And the silver shone like moonlight, the soufflés rose like the sun, all the napkins and white tablecloths were shining. And in all the years we went there, Sylvie never learned my name, but she made that room a home and made me vow I'd do the same. No surprise, when I got older, it became the thing I did. It's a madman's occupation, but inside me there's a kid who's offering a worried world a menu like a flag unfurled at a table in a restaurant on a corner of the world. When other girls were jumping rope while I was tasting brie, and I studied every cookbook like the Bible. I swore I'd go to Paris, learn the secrets of French food, but I know now what I wanted was to recreate the mood. See that restaurant round the corner where our family felt whole, where my parents loved each other and the soul was touched with soul. A simple room, a sacred place, a Friday night, a state of grace. That restaurant round the corner, our table in the restaurant, and me there at that table on a corner of the world.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is truly beautiful. Thank you, Melissa. Melissa Errico is, of course, one of the supreme performers of the American musical theater. She is, as the Wall Street Journal said, the greatest living interpreter of the music and lyrics of Stephen Sondheim and David Shire, and I feel enormously privileged to have her taking part in our slightly lower level of the slopes of Parnassus, where we plant and raise our own ambivalences and ambiguities. It's been a joy in the last few years actually to become sort of her Van Heusen and Kahn. We even wrote her a personal swing song called Cry for Joy, which I am prouder of than I am of my long book on liberalism, and you can find on YouTube. David Shire is, of course, the composer of Our Table on Broadway Records. He's one of the most distinguished figures in the musical theater. He's written shows from Big to Baby, just to name some of the B's. His film scores are truly, and not to use this word in a hyped way, but in a natural way, are legendary. Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, The Conversation, they remade the sound of the American film. When he approached me several years ago about writing a musical, I was thrilled to be working with him. Little did I know that collaborating on a musical, becoming a songwriting team, was, for terms of degree of difficulty and day-to-day pain, a little bit like climbing Mount Everest without mittens on. David, are you there? Hey, David.
Melissa, that was great.
Yes. Can we hear you? I'm sitting, David, as you can see, in front of the piano in which you wrote some of this score. In fact, you may not remember it, that song, Restaurant Around the Corner, you wrote on a sofa one of the astonishing things about working with great musicians is that they have music in their heads. And I came up with the lyric, you retired to the sofa, shut your eyes, heard the music, and came back here about an hour later and played it for me on this piano. And it never had to change a note. It was perfect from its first appearance.
That must be a lucky piano.
And that
Once in a while,
they come. Yes.
which makes up for all the times that we tell our
Yeah.
24 hours.
It's true. I know. One of the fascinating things about watching you work, David, was exactly the play, as you were saying, between the times when we would have a specific problem to solve, a plot problem or an action problem that had to be solved musically. One of the things that you taught me, David, which should be self-evident but is not, is that the secret to musical theater is that you have to build up pressure, story pressure sufficiently to not just allow a song, but to demand a song, so that the only thing that the characters can do is sing at that moment. And we created a lot of numbers that are like that, some which we'll hear. But occasionally, you would just come in with what you called a gift, and you would say, I got this last night. I don't know where it's from, and you would play some exquisite piece of music that as yet had no home.
It happens, and we live for those moments.
And what one of them was
Conscious works when you give it a chance.
one of those moments was when David came in and he played an absolutely beautiful melody for me. And right away I said, that's the love song for the kids. We have two plots in the show, an A plot about David and Claire Kaplan and their ex-friend, ex-lover, antagonist, the irresistible Sergio Momesso. But then we also have a subplot about Carlo in the pizza parlor, his daughter Anna, and her romance, her first romance with the Kaplan's son, 16-year-old Bix. And this exquisite music that David brought out of the blue, or whatever, out of whatever that Empyrean is, where composers fly at night to meet their muses and then come back down to their workaday lyricists the next day with it, turned into the love song for those kids the first time they ever make love. It's called What Do We Do Now?, which is the question we ask after our first intimate experiences. We've had it. It's happened. What do we do now? And we have a wonderful Annalise Carpacci and Tyler Jones are going to sing it for us now. Annalise.
What do we do now?
What do you say next?
Are there any rules?
No, I guess you just guess.
Tiny drop of sweat shining on your brow.
After what we've done, it feels weird just to dress. Everything has changed.
Just talk, I'll talk too. So much I can now say to you. What happened to rules? There's no then, there's no next. Not a word you can text. Every next is now.
If my father ever found out I had a small profitable business using social media, he'd kill me.
If my dad ever found out I was making pizza, he'd kill me.
You love this pizza.
I love you. Everything has changed.
Mostly me and you.
What we did they'll never undo. The love that we shared feels so clean feels so strong, and it sings like a song every next is now.
Tyler, Annalise, amazing. The only thing that's missing, David, from these events, which is so much fun, right, on StreamYard, is the sound of applause, right? Because you want, after the end of a performance like that from Annalise and Tyler, you want the room to raise, and instead we sit appreciating, smiling at our computers.
It's so weird to film models. We can laugh track or telling a joke and there's no response.
Exactly. Exactly. I should explain the story point of that song, which is that the kids have come together to make green pizzas, to start a little green pizza business, which ultimately will reconcile the two families, Carlos and David and Claire's, together in one moment, bringing together anarchist pizza and market to table restaurant going. I'd love to go back, if we could now, to the green market. And I was hoping to speak to Aquilino, if he's there, and talk a little bit more. Hey, how are you, man?
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
It's going good. Would you introduce yourself and explain your role at the green market?
Sure. My name is Aquilino Cabral. I'm the general manager for Union Square Green Market. So what we do is we're in charge of the setup and operation of the market 4 days a week.
Do you know your character in our table, our musical, is played by is always played by a wonderful lesbian goat cheese maker. That's her background. So she has your part as the green market manager. Could you tell me, Aquilino, a little bit? Nick was talking about the big picture of the green market in GrowNYC, and Peter was talking about its relationship with restaurants. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the day-to-day functioning of the green market, particularly in this time of pandemic. When do people start rolling in? How do you arrange? I've always wondered who gets what stand when for what reason how.
So definitely. So our day basically start at 5 in the morning at the market, but days before we do the planning of assigning spaces. For the most part, producers been here for 38 years, so they have their spot. But what we do have is new producers are coming in. These are people that we need to move around and sort of adjust in the market in a space that is not too close to someone else selling the same thing. So we take the plaza as a piece, and then we divide it into small pieces, and then we try to balance it out, starting from 17 and Park all the way down to 14th Street and Broadway.
It's a big space. How many vendors do you typically have? Farmers do you typically have on the Monday?
On a Monday, it's a smaller market, so we have anywhere between 20 to 30 producers on a Monday.
Mm-hmm. And on the Saturday?
On a Saturday, we go anywhere from 85 to 90.
8 to 90. And how far? What's the radius of the farms and the farmers who sell at the green market?
So basically, each producer will get their space based on their needs. We approve them at the beginning of the season, which would be April, March. About March around, we start doing the approval, and based on the request and the space that we have, we approve them for a certain amount of space, and that's the space that they get for their season. So it's based on their needs and what they bring into the market.
And how far do farmers come from? In other words, how far away from New York City do you draw on?
So basically, we cover anywhere 250 miles from Poughkeepsie, New York. So it's basically about 300 miles from New York City. Right. And we go all the way up to Vermont and south as far as Pennsylvania.
And deep into New Jersey as well, right?
Yes, definitely. New Jersey, upstate New York, up to the Finger Lakes, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all those areas.
It's every time, and I go to the green market as it's my substitute for church or synagogue. It's my religious place. And every time you get a beautiful picture. I wonder if we feel this every day. You get a beautiful picture of our region, of all the variety and possibilities of the land we live in.
We sure do. I mean, it's so beautiful to be in the market. I mean, we stay open year round. We are a market, but once you start hitting spring, you start seeing the different colors of vegetables, fruit come into the market, And every Saturday, when it's because it's the biggest market, I'm excited to see what's coming in. And every time the producer is setting up, I cannot just wait to try the stuff they're bringing onto the plaza. It's just a great experience to be able to experience it from the farm right into your hands.
It's an amazing thing. I posted yesterday a picture of just the bounty I picked up on Saturday, a hot day that I was visiting. Unbelievable peaches, astonishing apricots, and the world's most perfect crushed berries. And it simply is the case that once you have tasted green market fruit, you will never go back. It's like
you never go back to a container store.
No, you never can, right? I just throw it in a pan and you roast it as a crisp, and it's better than a Grand Marnier soufflé at the Tour d'Argent. Tell me, if you would, Aquilino, a little bit about this moment and about the fundraising that's going on. I know that you don't deal with that every day, but it must be important for you to see that the green market's going to be sustained, that it has a kind of endowment to grow on.
Definitely. I mean, what we bring to the city, it's very unique. When we were in the middle of pandemic, we had people waiting in line on a Saturday for 45 minutes to an hour just to enter the market. The benefit of keeping the market open, it's so amazing. I mean, we are helping over 250 farms stay sustainable. So it's definitely important to keep the green market going. And this fundraiser is one of the ways that we can continue keeping the green market operating. And it's such a great privilege to be here and be part of this.
I can't resist asking you before I let you go and go back to your real work, the practical question. What's particularly beautiful in the green market this summer? I remember last summer that they were the best tomatoes ever. And in fact, Lydia Bastianich, the great American chef, Italian chef, said 2019 will go down in history as the year of the tomato. It was the greatest year for tomatoes she'd ever seen. Is there anything that's as good in 2020, this horrible year of 2020 that we're all living through? Is there any recompense on the produce stand?
I definitely feel that it's hard to beat the tomatoes. Tomatoes are about to start coming off the ground, starting hitting some producers already have tomato on the table, and they are as gorgeous as they were last year. So I feel tomato are going to take it again this year.
That's great. If we get one good thing out of 2020, it might be the perfect tomato. Maybe it's because I remember last year there were tomatoes at some of the stands that you just sort of dropped in a pan with a bit of garlic, and it turned into the greatest marinade that you could
Indeed.
ever. It's a pleasure talking to you. And people, when you go down to the green market, look for Aquilino, because he's the ringmaster of the market, and keeping all of the acts, from the clowns to the trapeze artists, more or less in harmony.
It's definitely a team here. This work is not possible with any of the team that we have here in place. And I'm so grateful to be working with a great organization, great leadership from Michael and Marcel, and the team here on the ground. I mean, they're amazing. This work is not possible without any of them.
Yes, it really is. And you can see it. And it's the kind of great teamwork that goes, when it's done well, it goes completely unnoticed. But if any of it were missing, our experience of the green market and our possibility of writing a musical about it would have been eliminated.
Yes.
Bless you.
That is true. Bless you too, Adam. A pleasure.
Great. Now, I think we have a special surprise. I believe that the Greek idol himself, Constantine Maroulis, is in the room. Is that true? I see his name. I wait for his apparition. Connie Maroulis joined us exactly when we were doing our Long Wharf production of the show to not just play, but to inhabit and incarnate the role of Sergio, who's an irresistible bad boy from New Jersey who started out as a partner of the Kaplans, had an affair with Claire that David, our hero, does not know about 20 years before, and has now become a kind of cross between Anthony Bourdain and every super celebrity chef you can possibly imagine. And he is, as only a character played by Constantine Maroulis can be, he is irresistible, roguish, and limitlessly forgivable. One of those wonderful guys who's, as he says at one point in the thing, I'm a bad boy, but I'm not a bad guy. And you, Constantine, you gave him so much, I don't want to say of your own personality, but certainly so much personality. Welcome.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for having me. This is a wonderful event to be a part of. And I love this show and I love this record. And I love you and everything that you do. I've been a big fan of yours for so many years. So to get a chance to work with you on such a cool project and to see it, finding a place and hopefully, a long life has been very exciting. So thank you so much.
Well, one of the joys, Konstantin is a limitlessly resourceful performer. He always finds a new improv, a new note, a new thing. And when we were working in New Haven, Connie would actually improvise lines, and our wonderful director would kind of say, "Do we really?" And I'd say, "Let him do it. It's wonderful." Because they were so in character. They weren't extraneous. They came out of our understanding of what it is to be the world's baddest chef in that way. We were saying, Connie, because it's part of this bizarre year, 2020, we're living through, that the very last show I saw in New York was you in concert singing down your new record.
Man, it's been a crazy ride since then, for sure. That was March 9th. That was Monday night. The cast party that Jim Caruso usually produces, and before his event, he usually has like a Broadway star or something do the early show. And yeah, I play there 4 or 5 times a year. I brought a stripped down, setup. We did my new record, all songs from that, and some
What's the new record called, Connie?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's called Until I'm Wanted. Available everywhere music is sold and streamed as we speak.
Exactly. One story of my life, Connie.
If you go to ConstantineMaroulis.com right now, I'll send you a signed physical copy, and then you also get a copy of my first album as well. Wow. But no, we're excited about the record, and yeah, it's available everywhere streaming music is: Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, whatnot.
Sam Goodies, as we were saying, whatever the ghost of Sam Goodies. We'll have it as well. It's one of the great pleasures of working with Konstantin, and there are countless ones too. In addition to all the artistic ones, is Connie has the most loyal fan base of any performer I've ever known. It tends to tilt a little, it's like my fan base. My son always says, whenever he goes to one of my readings, he says, "I really am going to bring along a defibrillator for your readers, Dad." And you have similar devoted great fan base in many ways.
It's all good. That's a television audience.
Those are the only people who read books, or the New Yorker, in fact. I want to say, is Melissa Errico in the room? I'd love to bring Melissa out as well. Hey, Melissa, welcome back.
Oh,
there she
Hello.
is. One of the things that I don't even know, Connie, if you knew this, because any musical has so many iterations it goes through. When we invented the character of Sergio, who was based on many different celebrity chefs who we knew or had crossed paths with, and the Peter Hoffman in some cases had crossed paths with, we knew he had to come from New Jersey, because that's where a celebrity chef will come from. And originally, we wrote all of his music in a Sinatra vein. We had huge fun writing kind of Sinatra pastiche for Sergio, but it sounded too dated. And one of the things that the character of Sergio represented in the show was actuality, modernity, the thing that was coming along now. So I had the idea, well, maybe he's a Springsteen fan. He should be working in a Springsteen mode. And as part of David Shire's genius, that I said that to him, and he wasn't that familiar with all of Springsteen's music. And I sent him some things, and he said, I see where this is going. And we wrote for the two of you to do as a duet, a song where Claire and Sergio remember their passionate love affair in Wildwood, New Jersey, a suitable place, at what's called a Doo-wop motel, which, by the way, graduate student research, other side of my life, is a real thing. There's actually the Doo-wop motel district in Wildwood. It's historic, it's protected. So we wrote about passion at a Doo-wop motel. Can we hear a little of that song now? It's probably my favorite of all the songs in the show. Connie Maroulis.
We walked to Maury's Piers.
My feet, the heat, the trudge. That's right. Cold Maury's Piers.
Do you recall the sandy fudge? Oh, we stayed in that room for so long.
Yeah, we did.
That someone knocked and asked if we were well. was long ago, and no, I don't now know the name of that motel. It was merely a weekend in Wildwood in some doo-wop motel. Just a weekend shared and a 90s story to tell. Who thought that one weekend in Wildwood would leave you so wild? Now you see a woman with a home, a husband and child. It was only a weekend in Wildwood in a doo-wop motel, but it altered my life. Now I'm still under its spell. Who thought that a weekend in Wildwood would leave me so wild?
It really rocking out. Not too much, not Julie Andrews as much and as before. I love that song, and I love the way the two of you sing it. So Connie, hang in there. Theater will come back. We are coming back. I'm sure of it. The theater and concerts are bound. Our hunger for them is too great for them not to reappear.
For sure. You know, we're always reinventing ourselves, and we'll be back. You know, I think we should all take the time right now to work on ourselves, work on our writing, our material, and yes, in time we'll get back together and we'll celebrate this great show. And I love working with both of you. And you know, it's funny, the Doo-wop Motel. I mean, it just brings back so many great memories. I spent most of my prom nights in Wildwood, New Jersey, by the way. So
Is that, you know, we never discussed this in a Doo-wop Motel. Long nights of passion and a doo-wop. No wonder you sang it so well. It was coming from real experience.
Exactly, exactamundo, real Jersey living right there. That's what you do.
Well, that's the kismet of musical theater. You write it for an imaginary person, and it comes to live in the heart and body of a real one. Speaking of that, Melissa Errico, I wonder if you would see us out musically today with a song that, again, similarly, I wrote out of one kind of experience, but that I know that you have lived very fully. This is a song that David Shire and I wrote for Claire, the heroine of our table, about her struggle to do approximately 25 things at once while looking after children, running a restaurant, pursuing her own career. She, in the show, is a former ballerina, a former dancer, so the vocabulary of dance is very much in her mind. I don't know, let me just read, though, something that I wrote that inspired this song, actually, which may speak to your experience, too. No matter how well I know the children, this is in Through the Children's Gate, no matter how many books I read to them, and no matter how many meals I cook for them, I will never know them as well as their mother does, because she knows them better than they know themselves. I know that you've got 3 young ones at home, and I wonder what this pandemic living has been like with them.
Oh dear. Well, it's funny because this particular song that you're talking about, by the way, you have the best cast members. I just want to remind you that there's, other than amazing Constantine, who's such an honor to work with, you have Alice Ripley and Liz Calloway on your album.
On the record, yes.
Don't forget that you have just the most wonderful people that love you and that are around you, that they're kind of playing Aquilino's part as the farmer.
Yes, in a wonderful song called Lucky, about the many marriages we make in a lifetime. And that's exactly right.
Sorry, I hate to digress.
Aquilina. No, I'm glad you reminded me, because that's aside from Doo-wop Motel, it's my favorite song.
Yeah, and Liz Calloway, of course, we can't just say the name quickly because she's the great muse of David Shire's music since forever.
Originated Baby on Broadway, and invented a whole new style of David Shire singing. That's exactly.
So, I know that we're all apart right now and we're all struggling in this pandemic, but you're surrounded by just so many people who in the theater business who believe in you and love you. So, and he just wanted to remind you that they're in your cast album too, as well as cut back to, I have 3 daughters. And when we did the first workshop, I think they were 9, 9, and 7. And now they are 13, 11, and 11. And the character...
Such easy ages, Melissa. There's no stress in that age.
Oh, it's just this whole preteen thing. I think it's getting crazy. When you say the mother knows them better, at this point, they don't think I know them at all, and they tell me off, and it's a whole new thing. In fact, in the course of knowing you, Adam, my children have become a lot more young women, and you may have noticed I wrote an essay recently called Becoming Little Women, about what it's been like dealing with the pandemic and having the 3 girls kind of unify in a sort of female solidarity that was really accented by the fact that my husband had the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. So we had a month where he lived in the basement, and we had to cook and clean and homeschool and read to each other and do the laundry and then take care of him and send food under this shower curtain. I mean, it was so crazy because we separated him. We didn't have a wall, Constantine. So.
I have a 9-year-old, by the way, too. So
I know. I love your daughter. She's so delicious.
And yours.
And my two inspiration for the kids in the show are now grown and out. But you were saying, Melissa,
Juliet, say that again?
So the everyday dance continues, though.
Yes, it continues, but also in our beautiful production in your live cast album, again, surrounded by loved ones, I cast my daughter to play my daughter.
Yes,
and she was only 9. So Connie, she's the age of your daughter. Can you imagine getting her to learn a Broadway show and perform?
No, that she did a great job. Your daughter,
she did, right?
Yeah. Star was born that night.
She seems so much older in 10 months. I feel like now I could push her in front of a Broadway audience. But at the time I was like, please do this for my friend Adam. And she was like, okay. I kept giving her Starbucks and donuts and things backstage.
You've gone from being Eliza Doolittle to Mama Rose, Melissa.
Absolutely. So your songs are very relevant, obviously more so, from a restaurant perspective now than even ever. The struggling and the endangered nature of every restaurant, but also the idea that in the pandemic you wrote, I'm feeling my everyday dance is, do you remember the St. Vitus's dance from the Middle Ages? Like the craziness of like, you're like going to die or something, but no, it's not that, but it's just the hysterically difficult to be a mother right now. So I'm going to sing for you, hopefully live. Here we are on live stream around the world.
Live around the world.
I love those glasses on you, by the way. They're great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. They're from Caddis, Caddis. I hope they'll send me a whole box for saying that. I love them. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to sing Everyday Dance live. And what the circumstance is my daughter Juliet and I are in the kitchen. I actually have a ballet bar right here, which unfortunately I can't turn my whole thing around, but I literally have a ballet bar in the kitchen. So I get this show. I'm teaching my daughter ballet while the phone is ringing, and the character is answering the phone because she's running the restaurant, and she has to take care of all the staff, the actors who are waiters who are now have auditions, and the decisions about the deliveries. And so this song is actually sung while the phone is ringing, and she's answering the phone intermittently. So we don't have the phone. We don't have my daughter doing ballet next to me. However, you will hear that my ex-ballerina character is singing all this. And what makes it extra almost sexy is that Constantine has entered the room while I'm singing this. So I'm sharing my sort of stress about the mess I've become, and my ex-boyfriend is watching, and I don't know that. So when the song is over, he's got all this information about how to calm her baby down, calm the baby. You know what I mean, Connie? So Connie, before I begin, Connie, do you remember how that felt, like watching her stressing out about everything?
Yeah, I mean, the show is so well crafted. It's beautifully written, and yes, I do remember. And for the rogue that he is someone that, I mean, for anyone to reach that sort of success as a chef, there has to be a level of artistry and passion, and although he'll never be the true, craftsman that your actual husband in the show is. He's sort of figured it out, but yeah, I think he has these moments of realization and real humanity, and we might get a glimpse of that right there. But sure, he's informed to better his situation by that great song as well.
Yeah, and it's the things that she's going through that, like, when she sees her old boyfriend, it's kind of a relief to not have him even know that side of her, just to remind her of the dancer she used to be. Yeah. And so it's this is the setup to the love story, but it's good that we're on stream together because it's sort of you're there. Yeah, you come right in at the end.
Could be watching lecherously.
Yeah, I've fallen for a dancer or two along the way, so I could relate.
I've fallen for a rogue or two. All right, shall I sing?
Would you, Melissa Errico?
You ready? Okay.
A woman's everyday dance.
Everyday dance. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Connie. Here I go. Push and play. First position set. Not quite yet. You'll do better. That's the way that you dance. Turn and then chassé, inward step. That's the coupe. That's the way that you dance. Someday you'll fly from tendu to grand battement. When you plie, you'll feel settled in the sentiment. Dancing's not just movement, it's emotion set to music as you dance. Phone call. Oh. Throw a jeté, then bourrée from the bedroom. That's the everyday dance. Cell phone pas de deux, text a mom, set a play date. It's your everyday dance. Now releve, cross your arms round some bills today. Next deep plie, as you dance another list away. Shoes for this one, jeans for that one. No one else will water all the plants. Try another thrilling entrechat, then grand bas in your sports bra. Once you loved to create. Petite pirouette as you get his prescription. Browse the post while you wait. I dreamed the critics would cry is adorable. Now it's a joke. My extension's that ignorable. Balanchine's rejected for the ball and chain of family romance. Now I look for any little chance to entrance with the everyday dance. God, I need to hit this routine. More caffeine, juice is green. Taste the everyday dance. Think of how we'll serve. Who does coats? Who's the busboy? Check the bar in between. Once legs and toes, making jealous every female there. Now legs and toes on the keyboard, writing emails there. All the craft you poured into your art now gets the stains off of their pants. Yet you summon up from inside all the strength for the everyday. What if once I woke, finally broke from the yoke of the everyday dance? Say I broke away, see me play, do ballet. I could dance every day. What if for once all that passion stuck up in me leapt up for joy and released what's been locked up in me? Would they see a dancer was asleep inside that smiling mother's trance? My daughter says, they'd say, look at Claire, see a girl, see her twirl. She says, how that woman can dance. Wow, she really can dance. Can she really still dance? Watch her everyday dance. Oh. Yay! Crickets. Pandemic applause. I don't hear you, Adam. You're muted. Unmute.
There, can you hear me now?
I do.
Live from her living room, where she is undergoing and executing an everyday dance every day with her daughters and husband, the incomparable Melissa Errico. We've come to the time to say goodbye. Thank you for seeing us off. Connie, are you there? Just to say
I am here.
And we'll say a warm goodbye. Thank you all, as you said, Melissa, and it's one of the real truths that this writer has learned in the musical theater. There are no people like show people. Someone should write a song about that. There is no business like show business. Everybody came together so generously and so beautifully to support us on this launch. And we want to rededicate it and urge everyone to support the GrowNYC and the New York City Green Markets, because without them, there would be no restaurants like the restaurant table in our table, and our lives would be incomparably impoverished. Are our friends of the Green Market still there to say goodbye? Hey guys, Peter, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody should reach out and support. You'll see running down the bottom of your screen the place to go to support GrowNYC in this, its 50th year, when they're trying to raise money, and they're going to have matching donations if you donate. Bank of America will be donating alongside you. David Shire, are you there? Hey, David.
Hey.
There you are. Hey, David. We got him. We kicked him off there. Music sounds wonderful, David. I'm sure David has the same response I do. All craftsmen always do. All I hear is the syllable that I should have rewritten and the rhyme I should have rewritten. Do you ever hear, David, the note you would write differently?
What was that again?
Do you ever hear notes you would have written differently?
Once in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the difference between a composer and an author. An author only hears the mistake. The composer knows he's made something beautiful. Yes?
The world should really know that when we first met, you said to me, I came to New York to write musicals, and I only took the job at the New Yorker to make a living.
Yes.
Until I
That's true. I don't know if you heard what David said, that I said to David once, my job at the New Yorker, where I write about everything from Joseph Mengele to Fresh Bananas, is the way I make a living. Musical theater is the way I express my heart, as we all struggle to do. Thank you all so much. I want to thank Richard Maltby, who directed the concert that we've done. Gordon Edelstein, as I mentioned, who was the original director on the production. Robbie Roselle, who directed us here today. Kelsey, so many other people who came in and brought, Annalise and Tyler, the wonderful Mark Nelson, the entire cast and crew and company of our table, and the entire cast, crew, and company of that great New York presentation every day, the Green Market at Union Square. Bless you all. Be well, and we'll meet at the Green Market someday soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao, Bella.